A blessed morning, everyone. We are on our second day of this journey inwards, journey to the core of our being. A shared journey towards that innermost core where we can find a place of peace, a place that opens us to the beyond, and also a place where we can find the opening to palpably experience our deep and intimate connectedness with one another. So let us continue with that intention of coming home to that deep, deep place and remaining there, if possible, for the rest of our lives. But our day-to-day life somehow seems to provide obstacles for that. Our day-to-day lives are occupied with the things that we do or the things that we want to have and the things that we think about. So those are three dimensions that take us up 24/7. Doing things, seeking to have things, and counting what we have, thinking that that's what I am, and then thinking about things, thinking about how I can have more or how I can do more, or comparing myself with others and so on. So these three dimensions, doing, having, and thinking, somehow come to be mistakenly associated with who we are. Who I am gets to be mistakenly identified with what I do. Like, I am what I do. I am a teacher, or I am a physician, or I am a plumber, or I am a housewife, or I am a person who does this or that. When we introduce ourselves, that's the most natural thing to come out, to introduce what we do. But that is only one very, very limited side of who we truly are. Again, another aspect that we think we associate with our identity is what we have. I have these possessions, I have this house, this family, and so on. So somehow, again, we think that the more we have, the more we are important in this world. Again, another very misleading thought that causes a lot of our unhappiness and our dislocation. That dislocation, that is actually the meaning of the word dukkha that the awakened one pointed out. And again, the third element that piles up all the debris that prevents us from really coming to that place of peace, coming to that home where we are, is the activity of thinking. Of course, we cannot do without these. We cannot avoid doing things. We cannot avoid seeking to have things, because we are embodied beings that need basics of food, shelter, and other things. And we are rational beings who have to think. But our dislocatedness as human beings comes when we identify who I am, who we are, with these three dimensions that consist in, or that occupy our day-to-day lives. So there is that inner nudge that we feel that calls us for something more. That cry when we look at what we do and we feel it's not enough, it's never enough. We look at what we have and we want to have more. And we reflect on how we think. And there's always a limitation, because thinking always is presupposed on the polar opposition between the subject, thinking, and the object that is thought. And so there is always that barrier there that thinking can never overcome. So we are caught in that very finite and very limited and very restricted human condition as long as we confine ourselves to what we do, what we have, and what we think. So that inner nudge beckons us. Is that all there is? Citing a famous song in the 1950s by Peggy Lee, was it? Is that all there is? And this is what we begin to hear, and this is what draws us to spiritual practice, to seek something that is way more satisfying than these pursuits of doing, having, and thinking. And so we encounter a spiritual practice in some religious tradition. And so for us, we have been blessed with encountering Zen practice through the traditions that it has come to us with. And now we are invited to see through all of this doing and having and thinking and allow ourselves to just sit still and be. So that is my repeated injunction, my repeated invitation to all of us who are here in this community of practitioners together. Just to sit there, don't just do something, sit there and allow that sitting to undo your doing, to undo your thoughts of having, and to subvert your thinking and allow it all to just rest in being. And as we roost like chickens do and find our home base in that place of non-doing, non-having, non-thinking, but just being, just this, then we are at home. Welcome home. And lo and behold, as we arrive home, we open the gate and realize everyone's there. All our kin are there in our home where we can connect with them. And who is our kin? Well, look around. What is visible to you? What can you hear? What can you taste? What can you feel? And who are there with you? There's no one excluded from that home. Once we arrive there, we realize this dynamic reality of just being is shared by all that bees. It doesn't come out correct in English grammar, but everything that just bees is there with me as I be. And that's the invitation that this practice continues to open to us. Come home to the source of all that you are, namely right here, right now, and just be. And then from there, do we stop all doing together, altogether, or do we stop our having things? Do we just become impoverished ascetics roving around the streets without anything? Or do we just stop from thinking and just become unreflective individuals? No. Our being then becomes the ground of all that we do, all that we have, and all that we think, so that there is no sense of any limitation in all of that. The being, as long as it grounds us and enables us to realize that that's where I am, and that makes us realize that that I am is shared by each and everyone and each and everything that utters I am together in this polyphony of the universe, then we are in good company, literally. The communion of saints, if I may say so. Now, that is the life that Zen invites us to experience, a life centered on just being that flows into our doing, our having, and our thinking. And the different approaches offered to individuals, given their backgrounds and given their specific intentions in coming to practice, may vary, but we are all on the way back home. And once we have arrived home, we only open our home and let our lives unfold and continue to unfold from that place of home, and open our hearts and open our homes, open our being in hospitality to everyone. So let me then describe that as the first fruit of Zen. That is coming home to the center of our being. This concentration that we use as a technical term can be taken in different ways, but I take it, as I always say, with a hyphen between con and centration. The centering of all the disparate elements of our lives, the doing, the having, and the thinking, and everything else, into this place right here, right now, where I am at home. And it is just being right here. And that being then is the source of all the dynamic activity that can come from that place where there is no one doing anything. There's no one that has anything. There's no one doing any thinking. But then all the doing, all the having, and all the thinking emanate from and surge from that place of just being. Coming home to the center of one's being. And that is the lifestyle that we are called to maintain and sustain. That coming home entails a discovery of our true self, of our true nature. And that is described as the second fruit of our Zen practice. When we open the floodgates of our heart, the floodgates of our being to that reality that is beyond anything that we can ever imagine, if we only see things from this limited subject-object perspective, that needs to do, that needs to have, and that needs to think. And as we come home to that place where all of those three are put to rest, then we see a whole new dimension of the world, of the universe, and of who we are. What is it that we see? What is given in these accounts of Zen practitioners who have come to an experience of their true nature? That is what is called Ken-sho, seeing our true nature. And what is that true nature about? We can use all the words that we can in terms of trying to describe it, but those words will serve only as like a finger, the proverbial finger pointing to the moon. And the words that we took, and which I'll continue to take as today's pointer, are the words that Bodhidharma gave in response to the question of the Emperor Wu when he was called into audience by the emperor. And the emperor, who was also an earnest seeker and a fervent follower of this teaching called Buddhism that he had heard was very widespread in India at that time. And so he brought in many who would teach people about Buddhism. And now he heard about this solitary monk who came from the western parts, namely India. And so he asked this monk in a face-to-face encounter about what Buddhism is all about. This practice of awakening that he had heard of, but he had only heard of through other schools, like those schools that chanted sutras, that built temples, and that did a lot of practice towards spiritual cultivation, but he did not really see or know what the internal content was. So he asked this reputed sage, what is the highest principle of the holy teaching? What is it that Buddhism comes to offer to humanity so that we can all really come to that place of peace and that place of true harmony with one another and a true sense of meaning of our life as human beings? What is that? And Bodhidharma's answer is, as recorded in this koan, the first one in the collection known as the Blue Cliff Records, is in one translation, vast and void, no holiness. That principle of the holy teaching, that core message of the awakened one that you are seeking, Your Majesty, is boundless and empty. No holiness whatsoever. And in hearing that, the emperor was somewhat taken aback, because he had understood that if one did very good acts, if one did charitable or meritorious acts to help others, and he was doing that, one would gain merit, so that one would gain a better rebirth in the next life, or one would come upon new fortune in this life and beyond. And also that if one did certain things that revered those who are reputed to be saints and so on, one did holy acts, that would also accrue merit. But here, this reputed sage, Bodhidharma, was telling him, it's all empty, vast and void, and no holiness. What is Bodhidharma's intent here? That word vast and void comes from the key word that is presented in Mahayana Buddhism, often translated as emptiness, from the word shunyata, but it comes from the word zero, zero-ness. Arrive at that place where there is literally no thing, nothing to do, nothing to have, nothing to think about. And let that place that you arrive at open out to the boundless reality of that holy truth, where there is nothing holy. Again, another contradiction in words. What does this mean for us? As we sit there, breathing in and breathing out, allow ourselves to just home in to this place that is all still. And let us dwell therein, allowing everything to be opened. Whatever we hear, see, taste, touch, feel, just allow them to be just like that, without thinking that I am here hearing those sounds or seeing what's in front of me, like the wall or the carpet, or feeling this or that, the rumblings of my stomach, the ache in my knees, and so on. And as we desist from thinking of these as objects of my perception, and just allow them to be just as they are, and allow us to come to a place where there's no one seeing, there's no one hearing, there's no one tasting, no one feeling, but it's just that. Then there may come a shift in our perspective. Something may throw us off from our normal way of looking at things with our self-consciousness, wanting to be in control. And that self-consciousness is edged out and set aside and thrown away. And what happens? There's a whole new dimension that comes in, where, to use words in a very clumsy way that can perhaps be misleading, but please take it in the way that it's offered as a pointer. There's no one seeing, no one hearing, no one tasting, but it's just what it is, just being as it is. And that is what is corresponding to what in the Buddhist terminology is emptying all of the doing, all of the having, and all of the thinking, so that it opens out to that realm that is vast and wide and boundless. How can it be vast and wide and boundless? Because there's no way of measuring it, because there's no one to measure, and there's no object to be measured at all. We're in that realm where we are now in total freedom, vast and void, vast emptiness. I remember Yamada Roshi talking about this in terms of a zero that you take as a denominator of a fraction. Again, it will be too complicated to go into all of the ramifications of that, but let's say that each and every one of us is the given karmic historical individuality that we are with our different names. And I see Sylvia Chu, Kathleen Cole, Leslie Childs, Eric Bing, Maxine Shapiro, Scott Thornton. Each and everyone has a concrete individual personality that you identify with what you are. But this Zen tradition, this tradition of Zen practice, assures us that you are more than you can ever imagine. You are not what you think you are. You are not what you do. You are not just what you have, but what you are is vast and void and boundless. Taste that by being still. Be still and know who you are. And the key there is I am. And that will open you out to that place that in emptying the having and the doing and the thinking, in being zero, in turning to that zero and making that the denominator of your life, that denominator that divides the numerator that you are, the concrete, karmic, historical individuality that you are. And as you do so, as you realize that zero and enter into it and allow it to open you up to that realm, you will see vast emptiness, no holiness. But it's not a void like some no some desert island or some emptied vacant locale that is seeking to be filled. It's not that kind of vacuum at all, but it is precisely a full and rich, vast and boundless reality wherein each and everything finds its place. Chairs and tables, walls, houses, trees, skies, dogs, people, each and everything, each and everyone is seen in a new light as participating in that infinite reality of just being. Consider that that fraction that Yamada Roshi was talking about. Let's say each of us has a given number, the number 42. If you recall this film about a travel guide to the universe, I forget the exact title, and they were asking, what's the meaning of life? And somebody there answered, 42. Ah, that's it. So, okay, let's say each one of us is a given number, 123, 465, whatever concrete number we may have, just by the karmic happenstance that makes us that particular number, being born in a certain place, in a certain time, and so on. We are of a certain happening on earth, your individual personality. Now, once you enter into that zero realm, and oh, thank you, it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Thank you for letting me know, for reminding me of that title. As we enter into that realm of zeroness, that number 42 or 123 or 461 and so on turns into, guess what? Infinity. As we divide that concrete karmic identity of ours with its given number by that zeroness that is at the heart of our being, lo and behold, the infinite horizon appears and we bask in that light of the infinite. How can there be anything holy there when we are steeped in holiness all over? There is no holiness to think of as being outside of us. It's all right there with every move, with every step, with every breath. So we are steeped in the holy, and we see each and every one also as holy. That is beholding this concrete reality of this world with its uncertainty, with its pain and suffering, with the isolating tendencies that people are aggravating more and more. We can see that world and embrace the pain of it, but now from the light of that boundless and infinite reality, and out of that place where we are looking at the world, we are moved to offer ourselves somehow, in some way, given our concrete historical gifts as well as our limitations, to be somehow a reconciler, a unifier, a wounded healer that might attempt to at least put these disparate things together in our broken world, because our hearts are for that. World as it is who I am. And so that is then the third fruit of this practice, this way of allowing my heart to move me to offer the gifts of my doing, and the gifts that I have, and the gifts of my thinking issuing forth from my being, so that that can be placed at the service of a wounded world, of a wounded earth. So let us return then to that stillness that will enable us to arrive home and enter into that zero-ness that will open up that place that is vast and boundless and no holiness, and allow us to gift ourselves back in compassion to the world.
Boundless compassion, absorbing your sounds awakens the Buddha here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light recalls it, in the dark recalls it. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this. Absorbing your sounds awakens a Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light recalls it, in the dark recalls it. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this. Absorbing world sounds awakens a Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light recalls it, in the dark recalls it. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this.
Before we walk in Kinhin, I just wanted to make the following announcements. As people had requested, here is the list for the breakout rooms. First, we have Shanna, and then Sylvia. Where is Sylvia? Sylvia, can you hear me? It's been having a problem. Michael, Maxine, Scott, Cameron, and then Jeffrey. You've been assigned, please join the breakout room.